It's Tawana Freeman with the Black Life Coaches Network. Thank you for joining us for this segment with Coach Early Jackson, another one of our popular guests that you all love hearing from. And today we are going to discuss fairy tale relationships. That means I think I am living in a fairy tale story where I have a knight in shining armor, or Prince Charming, or whatever. So tell me how that fits my life.
Absolutely. Well, let me start off by saying expectations, or the lack thereof, is what defines the parameters in a relationship. Often, women are afraid to ask the questions because they don't want to know the answers. And so when we talk about fairy tales, before I even get into that, I want to set the stage for how we've messed up with expectations. Gary Chapman wrote in a book called The Languages of Love. He says that there are 5 expressions of love. The first is words of affirmation, not just affection. Spending quality time. Number 3 is giving and receiving of gifts. Number 4 is there are acts of service. And the last one is physical touch and expression. Now, I went through that part because a lot of times we're not progressing on the same track as men and women. For men, the ultimate expression is physical. For women, the ultimate expression may be affirmation, not affection. So until we have these kinds of discussions and talk about these things and be very, very open and honest with each other, we're going to keep living in this fairy tale. Now, when we talk about fairy tale relationships, I have wonderful children. I've done the whole Disney thing with them. I've sat, and in fact, my youngest son would always tease me because whenever we went to a cartoon movie, we would get settled in. I would make sure I sat on the end and put my feet on the seat in front of me, and I'd go to sleep to make sure nobody could escape. And my son would go, "Daddy, you're going to take your nap now, right?" Because I would never really pay attention in these movies. But then I started looking at the books and reading, Tawana, and I realized this is their first exposure to a relationship.
That's right.
What they see happening here is what sets as we said earlier, sets the expectation for what a relationship is going to be about. So I want to talk about 3 characters in particular. I want to talk about Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. I want to talk about Belle from Beauty and the Beast. And I want to talk about Snow White from, of course, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs.
Okay.
And what makes them all connected on a subconscious level is it communicates that if women get into enough distress, their Prince Charming is going to ride up and rescue them. It literally makes women feel like drama is some type of aphrodisiac that causes their man to ride up. And so we perpetuate these stereotypes of being the woman in distress, or society, I should say, perpetuates this. So, men see that as another stumbling block because they're saying, man, every time I come around, you're in this distress mode, and I'm tired of being Captain Save 'em. There's nothing to me more attractive, and I dare say use the term even sexy, as a woman that has her own life going on. That when you find her, she's already en route to her destiny, and you guys complement each other, as opposed to me finding you being half a woman, waiting for your other half, and then we get together and make a whole. Talk about Dorothy, first of all. Wizard of Oz, beautiful story. I've read this story. My kids have seen the original and The Wiz with Diana Ross and Michael Jackson. One of the things that has always troubled me about this, Tawana, was Dorothy actually went into a storm, or ended up in a chaotic storm chasing a dog. I'll let that marinate for a second. How many women
get in the storm
that are watching this video? You're in a credit storm. You're in a health storm. You're in a family storm. Because you went chasing Toto, a dog, into the storm.
I hear you.
Now, then she gets swept away into this fantasy place, and she runs into people. Now, listen to the men that she's meeting. This is proof to me that Dorothy needs to change. The Dorothys out there need to change their dating pool, because all they're finding in the area they're looking for a man is a man with no brain, a man with no heart, and a man with no courage. And the crazy part about it is these are all these needy men and then Dorothy, with this situation going on inside of herself, she connects herself to these men, Tawana, and says, "Don't worry, I'm here. I'm going to save you. You're a project. You have this incredible potential." Sounds real familiar from my coaching. Oh, Dr. Tawana, he's so good. He's 38. He doesn't have a job, but he's gonna be a rapper. He's got so much potential.
Right.
Boo, you gotta wake up. You got the Scarecrow,
right.
the Lion, and the Tin Man,
right.
and you become responsible for taking them to their destiny.
Right.
If you have to take a man to his destiny, you're not his wife, you're his mother.
That's right.
And that's a dangerous thing to be. And that's what Dorothy represents. She represents connecting with men who are half of what they should be, when really her objective, nobody cared about her objective. If you think about it, these three men that she ran into, all they wanted to do was get to a place of promise. Nobody cared about whether or not she made it home or not. So
Absolutely.
Men, this is a key point for young ladies. You should connect with a man that releases your potential. You should connect with a man that sees your destiny and says, listen, I want to be responsible for pulling this out of you and pushing you into the place that you're supposed to be.
That's strong. It's a very powerful statement, because that is true. When you look at the roles of a household, a traditional home, they're in respect for the men being heads of household or being leaders of a household. What happens in that leadership role is your responsibility as a leader is to recognize the talents and the abilities and the potential of all members of your household and assisting them with that developmental process so they can become the best that they can be, and taking advantage of every opportunity that's presented to them by offering them that level of support, the guidance, the mentoring, whatever it is that they need to do to help develop and blossom those individuals. Now, the work, of course, is upon the woman and, of course, our children to put the work in, but the role of the leader is to help to identify what it is that's important, that needs to be nurtured and developed and cultivated for their purpose.
And I'll just throw this out. I'm throwing this in for free, Tawana. One of the questions that people always ask me as a woman is, why are men afraid of strong, independent women? And I tell them very plainly, men typically, that a man that's afraid of a strong, independent woman is only afraid of her because of what she represents. She represents a standard that he has to live up to now. Because she can't be this strong, independent woman, and he's this wimpy whiner. So that's where the challenge is.
That's true.
Women aren't afraid of a strong woman.
Well, I was going to say that because a lot of men that respond to that question with the "No, I'm not afraid," answer, is because they already are confident in their own of themselves. They don't have the lack. So it's the articles aren't written for them. The articles are written for those who aren't. So typically the men who got it going on and all together are the ones that say, no, I don't have a problem with strong women. In fact, it's attractive to me. Well, that's because you're a strong and confident man looking for a woman who can add to your life, not subtract. So that's a different perspective. So, okay, so we talked about our Dorothy. Now, which one? Are we going with Snow White or Belle?
We're going with Belle now.
Okay.
Because Belle is interesting, and this was, by the way, my daughter Trelena. This was her favorite story. She loved the movie and everything. And as I looked at it and began to kind of prepare some material, I taught this a while ago. Belle was attracted to a man that had a severe temper problem that was bordered on by his own insecurities. So, you got this beast now. He's got the potential to be this wonderful prince. But he's destroying things. If you remember the cartoon and even in the book, he's destroying things. I'm like, how many 24-year-old women have you seen in situations that scared you, Tawana? Because you're thinking, I'm going to read about her one day. Because she's stuck on this thing that he's better than that. You guys don't understand him. There's a prince locked up in this beast. The problem with that is he kept her locked away. She was lucky this time that her quest to find the potential in the beast didn't end up tragic. But in some cases, we read about it. In your quest to unlock the prince that's locked up in the beast, people have ended up, we've read about it. I mean, we've gone to funerals of women like that, and the guy's locked away now, but what good was it for you to stay in a situation that's potentially dangerous? But if you're feeling locked away as a woman by a man who has some type of insecurity, and when men lose their jobs, when men don't feel powerful, when men don't feel significant, we react in a different way than women. Women seek affirmation from other women to feel they're significant. Men, we dominate. That's what we are. We are men. And when we feel out of control, we gravitate to the areas that we feel we can control. And unfortunately, more often than not, there's a supportive woman that's getting the brunt of all of the frustration and all of the insecurity because he can't control what happened at work. He can't control that the job market won't hire him. He can't control that you have a degree and he doesn't.
Young women tend to want to change the man. They end up in that situation. So again, it's that transformation process to say, I see a beast, but I know a prince is there. And so we tend to speak to these young women, and of course, even women, you know, in their 40s, like myself, who are still year after year after year, still struggling, still suffering in very unfortunate domestic situations where they are, not only are they affected, but their children, products of their relationship, are affected. So very dangerous.
Belle is indicative of what's happening in the African American community. Everybody wants a roughneck. Women love, our community loves the bad boy. And
That's
unfortunately,
true. That's true.
You know, there's something that makes them feel like, you know, this is a fixer-upper. We have a better scrutiny of buying property than we do picking a mate. We won't even consider buying property until it's gone through several inspections. We've done title searches. We've done everything. But we'll pick up a mate and find out he's got 2 wives, and, you know, a woman will pick up a mate, 2 wives, and 8 other kids that you didn't even know about until the day after you got married. Because we have, you know, in our community, we have this need to lean on each other instead of learning how to stand by ourselves.
Absolutely. No, you're right. You're spot on. Okay, well, I guess we're going for Snow White and these dwarfs. So what we got with Snow White?
All right, Tawana, this is a big one because she was willing to invest in a bunch of men that had obvious hang-ups. And here's the part that blew me away. I'm reading the story one day and it hits me. None of these men are even marriage material. This is for the women who just kind of go around and just date guy after guy, sleepy, dumpy, grumpy, sneezy, lazy, you know, happy, and they date these guys knowing full well that at the end of the dating process, there is no hope of marriage. In fact, this is not even the kind of guy you want. Now, I know a lot of, you know, some women may be watching this and say, okay, you're reading a lot into a bunch of fairy tales. Well, that's kind of the way I teach and I coach. I pull stories, parables out of regular stories and show some significance to them. But if you think about it, they went off to work. She stayed home. They came home. She was there. She put their hats up. Had their beds ready. And these are these women who just have a fixation with tending to house. They love to kind of shack up. You know, test out relationships. These are the women that are in 5-6 year relationships. You say, when are y'all getting married? And they say, I don't know, we're waiting, we're saving up for the wedding. You know good and well y'all not going to get married. He's not going to marry you. And then if you kind of pressure him enough and give him an ultimatum, he'll put a ring on your finger. But that's as far. But who needs a 3-year engagement? What are y'all waiting for? Now I know this is kind of hitting hard, Tawana, but I want to shake some women. You've been engaged to him for 4 years. He's not going to marry you because if he was, he would have taken you to the justice of the peace and said, okay, for our 2-year anniversary, our 1-year anniversary, we're going to have a big wedding. When I got with Sharice, my wife, I didn't want a long engagement. I wanted it long enough for us to get to know each other. But whatever my financial state was, it was open to her. So we're not saving up for this wedding that we can't even afford. We're going to get married in a year. And whoever can come, but my intent was there. And I think the issue with Snow White was she was content with men who had no intent.
The characters of these stories are identifying women that are in a transition state themselves and women who are settling because they have or need to see someone transitioned. Is that an accurate way to kind of categorize that? Because everything that you are saying, in my mind, speaks to the fact that trying to fix We're trying to make a man. We're trying to make everything, which is typical of a woman's role when it comes to being a provider, a nurturer, a mother, or whatever. We tend to do that, and it's a broad stroke into every area of our lives at times.
I agree with you 110%, Tawana. It's women historically and statistically buy more self-help material. Right. Women statistically attend church events to seek help. Women are more apt to reach out for counseling. And I think it's a deeper issue that we have to address with men, of why we feel we can't connect with others to help us be better, and why are we so afraid of the challenge of transparency.
Well, what we're talking about right now are women who are they're out there in the field looking, and they have not taken the step of matrimony and commitment at that level, to where they have opportunity now to make a change, to do something different, to avoid going down the road of matrimony that would ultimately end in divorce or some other negative tragedy. I don't know if I feel like my mode has changed in a sense, because I've really shifted into thought, because I'm thinking about every last one of those characters and who I know in my life, where I can kind of, let me share this with you. I'm literally in thought about how I can do that, to include my daughter. It's like, she's seen those movies many times, and so have I with her. And it's funny though, she's of the age now where we can have a conversation in a different way. So we're not destroying the fairy tale, but what we're doing is transitioning her to a different view, a different perspective on those fairy tales. Wow. Real world. That's real world there. That's real world. Real talk, as they say. Real talk.
Real talk.
All right, Coach Early. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day.
Anytime, Tawana. Have a great day.
You too.